What's up, party people? We're back again, like we are every week. And we have more books, of course. And we have a lot to talk about today, because I finished Great Expectations, as I alluded to last week. I finished Orwell's 1984, which I also alluded to last week. And what was it? What else? Oh, of course, Flannery O'Connor. I read The Peeler, which is a bit longer, but it was good. And then I started on another book this week, which I probably will finish by next week. It's pretty short. So, yeah, that one's Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. 2 kids' books. Nice illustration on the front, too. I like it. Yeah, so hopefully by next week I'll have that for you. But let's get into the new books, the stack here. I like showing the books off on the channel because after that I get to stack them on my shelves, which means I get to take them off the floor and organize them. Although I will say that lately, the last couple weeks, I haven't been able to do that as much because my shelves are filling up. So I need more shelves so I can organize the books on the floor. Anyways, first up, and this haul was from Marketplace Pickup. So the first one here I have is Lewis Carroll's Selected Poems. Now, what a coincidence, right? Because I just started on his Alice in Wonderland, but now we have his Selected Poems, and I think some of these poems are actually found in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. And indeed, the table of contents seems to indicate that is the case. I don't know if you can read that or if it's backwards, but yeah, a lot of them are from there, so that's good. There is a note in this one as well, which I love seeing. It says, "Jane, we'll have to do it again someday. Lots of loves and hugs, lawn." Not sure what they're alluding to, what it is, but anyways, a little snapshot of history right there. Now, Lewis Carroll, of course, known for being a children's book author. Interestingly, he was a mathematics professor, so not really something you associate with writing kids' books. But anyways, I haven't read too much of Alice's Adventure, but it's quite ridiculous so far. So I guess he had a inner child living in him. And I mean, some of the names in here are quite ridiculous, like Jabberwock. And I don't know, I can't. Anyways, yeah, funny guy. So looking forward to reading these. Next up, we have some more poetry, but a little more serious. This is a compilation of C.S. Lewis's narrative poems. Now, interestingly, apparently he really liked the narrative poem, and some of his manuscripts for his books, he wrote first in narrative verse, and then like transliterated it into prose afterwards. So the example that the back of the book gives is Surprised by Joy. He wrote that first in poetry. So I guess maybe he's just so smart that like stuff comes to him in verse. Or maybe he just found it easier to compose that way. I don't know. It's very interesting. I don't think a lot of people are like that. Anyways, this edition contains 4 of his narrative poems. Dimer, Launcelot, The Nameless Isle, and The Queen of Drum. All of which I've never heard before, so should be good. Yeah. Oh, I gotta make a better spot for these. Next up, we have G.K. Chesterton. Now, I read one of his non-fictional works, The Everlasting Man, recently, and was met on it, but I alluded to the fact that maybe his fiction was better. So here we have The Napoleon of Notting Hill and The Man Who Was Thursday. Okay, so Napoleon of Notting Hill, it's like an alternative history, I guess, of London, where they randomly elect a monarch, and this guy kind of brings back patriotism by giving different neighborhoods different heraldic arms, and everyone kind of scoffs at the new monarch. He doesn't really know what he's doing, but one guy takes it to heart, and it kind of is maybe a revival story of patriotism. But yeah, so that'll probably be good, I'm hoping. And then The Man Who Was Thursday is like a detective story, I believe, where this poet turned politician gets involved in some sort of secret organization or cult or something. So, yeah, cool stuff. Although I will say, both the C.S. Lewis book and the G.K. Chesterton both have this like glossy, like modern paperback finish, which I really do not like. Kind of ugly to hold. It's like plasticky. I don't like it. But guess you can't complain too much. Now these editions I like a lot better. The remainder of the four are the matte white Oxford Classic. These are great. And this is Mary Shelley's The Last Man. Now Mary Shelley, of course, known for writing Frankenstein. I believe when she's quite young, actually, as well, maybe 18. So that's surprising, right? That she had that much literary talent at that age. Now this is The Last Man, which she wrote 8 years after Frankenstein, and I believe also after she returned from Italy after her husband died. Now her husband being Percy Blythe Shelley, the famous poet. Okay, so just talent all around, I guess. This is about it's a story within a story, I believe, and the story that is being told is of a pandemic that wipes out all of humanity, and there's one guy left. So yeah, that should be good. If it's anything like Frankenstein, I'm gonna love it. So Frankenstein's one of my favorite books. I know it's like a basic choice, but it's popular for a reason because it's very good. Next up, speaking of Frankenstein, we have another Gothic novel here. Now, this one's predating Frankenstein. It's one of the first Gothic novels, just when the genre was kind of being pioneered, and that is Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto. Very scary looking cover there. I like it. It's quite short, actually. It's pretty thin. And the premise behind it is that there's a man who I think is a king, or I don't know, he's the owner of the castle, and his son has a wedding day, and he dies on his wedding day. So then the man is like, well, I'll marry the bride to be, and she doesn't want it, so she's running away, but they're all stuck in the castle, and there's ghosts and phantasms and things like that. So yeah, it sounds really good, and it's pretty short, so maybe I'll read it soon. But honestly, it's one of those things I probably should have read maybe 2 weeks ago because of Halloween, right? But whatever. Next up, we're just going further and further back in time here. We have John Bunyan's Grace Abounding. Now, John Bunyan is famous for writing the great allegorical work, The Pilgrim's Progress, or A Pilgrim's Progress, I don't know. The Pilgrim's Progress. And that is, of course, fictional, but Grace Abounding is autobiographical, so non-fictional. And it has to do mostly with his wrestling with Calvinist doctrine of predestination, right? Whether or not he is marked to be saved or not. And so it's mixed with despair and joy, kind of bouncing back and forth between those two extremes. And then it also contains a few other autobiographies by John Bunyan's contemporaries. For example, I don't know any of these names, but Richard Norwood, John Crooke, Lawrence Clarkson, Agnes Beaumont. Yeah. Anyways, so I don't know. I just kind of saw the name Bunyan and I picked it up. I'm not sure. I don't really read a lot of biographies, but maybe I'll read that alongside Pilgrim's Progress. It'll kind of help guide my thinking on that. Last but not least, we have the 13th century Romance of the Rose. Now, this does not have an author associated with it, and that is because it is a joint work, although an unintentionally joint work. So it was begun by Guillaume de Loris, or sorry, other way around. I think it was begun by, oh no, my mistake. Guillaume de Loris started it, died, and then Jean de Meun finished it. And yeah, it's a, what does it say here? It's a romance, or, well, obviously it's a romance, it says in the title. But it's an allegorical account of the progress of a courtly love affair. Now, of course, in the Middle Ages, courtly love affairs were all the rage. So this is one of the most popular of them all. So I'm looking forward to this being good. Yeah, although it is a translation, so that's unfortunate. But that's what you get for only being able to read English. That's my own fault. All right, now what did we read this week? I'll start with Great Expectations. So I think I alluded a few weeks ago to the fact that I thought this book ended with them being stuck in a cave. I don't know why I thought that. That must have been another book I read as a kid at the same time. Because I read this, Great Expectations, like way back in the day. Like maybe early high school, or like maybe even like late elementary or late junior high. Of course, a lot of it probably went over my head at that time. But for some reason, I thought there was a cave involved. If anyone knows about a classic book where people on the second half get stuck in a cave, please tell me what it is. I don't remember. So anyways, they do not get stuck in a cave. Now, I don't want to spoil it too much, but for those of you that have read it, Dickens does not give us the ending that you would expect. Now, I'm a bit sentimental. I like a nice happy ending, and we don't get that in The Great Expectations. We get Pip just being a bachelor, right, for the rest of his life. And I don't really know how to take that, you know? And it leaves me with a lot of unanswered questions, like, why does he continue being devoted to Estella even after she admits that she cannot have feelings for anyone, right? She only marries Dremel because of his status and for money, and because she kind of doesn't really mind inflicting pain on him because he's kind of a what's the PG term? He's kind of a butthead. So she spares Pip the heartbreak. But yeah, I don't know. Interesting artistic choice by Dickens to end on a non-optimistic note. I think Great Expectations is one of his later novels, so maybe it reflects a more mature, nuanced approach. Anyways, yeah, I have a discussion on this tomorrow, actually, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, should be good. I think I should read more Dickens before giving it a rating. It was good, but I don't think he's my favorite author. But probably good to read at least one of his novels a year, because they have a certain sentimental, cheery value to them, even in the case where it didn't end well for Pip. But he gives you characters like Joe Gargery that make up for it, right? So, yeah. Also read 1984. Now, everyone and their dog has read this book. I feel bad to have not read it, right? Because it's more of a high school book, and I'm way out of high school, okay? Anyways, speaking of bad endings, this also doesn't have a happy ending, if you haven't read it yet. I will summarize this one. I'll try to do it quickly. Great Expectations, the plot's too complicated. I can't summarize it in 2 minutes, but I'll try with this one. So they live in this alternate universe where the government is kind of controls everything. There's three classes of people: inner party, outer party, and the proles. The proles are the masses. The inner party is like the elites, and then the outer party is kind of like the middle class aristocrats that do all the party work. The party is the government that controls everything. They're constantly at war. They're constantly not producing enough goods, so everyone's kind of starving all the time. And everyone's being surveilled all the time. And basically there's this guy that he's never really bought to the party's lies. He's in the outer party, and he decides to rebel. And he finds this other girl who's also in the outer party who rebels. Another thing is in this book is you're not allowed to enjoy sex. You have to only do it for procreation, and that's it. So they kind of, him and this girl kind of meet up to defy the government. And they have this friends with benefits relationship, I guess, for a little while. And then, of course, they get caught. And so the main character, Winston, is sent to the Ministry of Love, which everything is labeled incorrectly. It's not Ministry of Love, it's a torture center. And he is sort of tortured and broken down into believing the party's lie. And the most fundamental party lie is relativism, right? That they make reality. Reality doesn't define them. And so, yeah, I mean, the book could end where he mounts this resistance and they overthrow the government or something. That's what you're hoping for as you read the book. But at the end, he is just psychologically broken after, I don't know, it doesn't say months or years in this torture facility. And eventually, through the use of machines and suggestion and like psychotherapy, they eventually just break his brain. And they starve him to death. He's like a skeleton. And then once his brain is broken and he believes in the party, they give him food again, make him healthy, and send him back out into the facility. And he just goes about his life as a broken man. And that's the end of the story. There's no hope. So, yeah. Thanks, Orwell. Pessimist. Anyways. Point well taken, okay? Point well taken. Although, I will say that the allusions and the suggestions in regards to a despotic future are a little heavy-handed. So, maybe it hits harder for a high school student, but for me, I don't know. I like it when the moralizing is a bit more subtle, like O'Connor, which is what we're talking about next. This week I read The Peeler, which I think is closer to like 20-25 pages, so a bit longer than the other short stories that I've read so far. And this one was good. So I mentioned last week that the guy in the story, Hazel, or Hayes, he was in the last one, and I didn't like the last one, and I thought that this one and the next one were connected because the name is the same and the town is the same. Now they could be connected, but there's no real like allusion to the plot in either case. So if they are connected, it's not really. You could read one or the other by themselves and you wouldn't notice. Now, Hayes is kind of a lost guy, and we get more of his backstory in this one. So basically, the way it starts is Hayes is now in this town called Talkingham, and he is walking down the street, and there's this guy selling potato peelers, and he's kind of got a crowd together. He's trying to sell them, and then this blind guy and his daughter come and hand out these pamphlets about like it's evangelizing thing. It's like a Jesus pamphlet, like come to church, and the potato peeler gets mad, right? Because he's like, I made this crowd come to buy a product, and now you're just like, you're scaring everyone away with your fanaticism. And so at one point, the daughter of the blind man who's handing out the tracts tries to buy one of the potato peelers. She doesn't have enough money. So, and Hayes just keeps staring at the blind man. He can't really get it out of his head. Like, why this guy's like significant somehow. And so as they're walking away, he buys a potato peeler, tries to run up to catch up with the girl to give it to her. And on the way, this other dude that lives in town who doesn't know anybody, he's a very annoying kind of pestering guy, always talking, and won't leave him alone. Nice enough guy, but just kind of doesn't really take a hint, you know. He's kind of following him as they walk down the street. They have this conversation. Anyways, and they catch up to the blind man and his daughter, and they had gone to a theater. So everyone's going to come out, or I think it's a theater. Anyways, everyone's going to come out of the theater in a few minutes, and they're going to hand out the Jesus tracts, or the pamphlets or whatever. And so he gives her the potato peeler, but she doesn't want it. And the blind man's like, just take it, put it in the bag, whatever. And then for some reason, Hayes keeps saying to the blind man, I did not follow you. I didn't follow you. I just followed the daughter because I wanted to give her this potato peeler. And the blind man keeps saying, no, you followed me because I can tell you have a desire to know Jesus. I can tell. And of course, Hayes interprets it just as a result of the guy's fanaticism, right? He probably says this to everybody. He's probably claiming, you followed me, or you talking to me because Jesus wants to talk to you. And he's like, come on, like that's nothing. And then at some point, he's like, well, you guys are here with me. Why don't you help us hand out the pamphlets? So he's like, gives Hayes some pamphlets, and then they go and they are handing out pamphlets to the people that come out of the theater. And Hayes is just kind of like, he's going through one of his like not psychotic breaks, but kind of just like a moment where he's like not quite in touch with reality. He's like sweating and like overwhelmed, and there's like people everywhere, and he's like not really sure. And then they all leave, and we get this scene of all the people having left the theater, and all the pamphlets they handed out to them are just all on the ground, crumpled and wet, right? So people obviously just took the pamphlet and threw it away. So then they go through and they pick up the pamphlets that are still good to use, and while the loud, annoying guy was on the other side giving pamphlets away with the girl, she gave the potato peeler back to him because she didn't want it, so she's kind of rejecting the gift. And then the main character, Hayes, and the annoying guy, they walk to his house. Hayes is like, leave me alone, I don't want to talk to you. So they part, and then we kind of get a flashback of when Hayes was a kid, and he is at a fair with his dad, and he sneaks into this tent that his dad goes into, and I couldn't exactly figure out what was going on in there. Apparently there's like a woman in a coffin, but she doesn't fit. There was like sexual undertones. I don't really know what he saw, but it was some sort of like guilty thing, where he felt really bad about sneaking into the tent and looking at it. And so then we flash back to the current reality, and he goes to see either it's a love affair or a prostitute, I can't tell. And something I forgot to mention earlier is that the blind man had called him out. You're following me because you want to know Jesus, and that the reason for that is because you're in sin. You're fornicating. And Hayes is like, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? But then it's revealed later that he has been going to see this prostitute. And so I guess it's very interesting because, of course, Flannery O'Connor is playing on the trope that, well, the blind man can't see, but he can see other things, right? Because he sees right through Hayes. Hayes does want to come to terms with faith and with Jesus, and he is in sin. So there's this, not a cliche, but very played upon trope of the blind man being able to see other things. And then, to some extent, I almost feel as though the blind man is some sort of Christ-like figure, and the potato peeler is some sort of act that Hayes does to try to like win God's approval, and the rejection of the potato peeler by the girl is somehow like your works don't save you, or something like that. I don't know. I know Flannery is making some sort of allusion here to Christianity. I can't quite piece it together, at least not yet. Maybe I just read it like half an hour ago, so maybe I'll marinate on it more, and it'll figure itself out. But yeah, this one was good. I like this one. I know I mentioned last week that the previous one, the train, wasn't very good, but this one was. I liked it. Probably not as much as the turkey though. The turkey was the best. But yeah, I like this one. So sorry I can't say more about it. But yeah. Anyways, that's this week. Like I said, we had a lot to talk about. We went long today, almost 22 minutes. That's good. Yeah, I got more stacks of books here, although we are running low. I think I've got two stacks here that we haven't talked about, so I'm gonna have to get back to the store and buy more so we can have something to talk about, or I'll redistribute these to make more stacks. We'll see. Anyways, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.